The BBC has apologised to the family at the centre of the Huw Edwards scandal over the way their complaint was handled.
It comes after The Sun published claims that the BBC star paid thousands to a teen who allegedly sent him sexual images. The family claims that they had complained to the BBC about the relationship, but said they were not listened to.
I remember when this story broke, and it took ages, didn't it, for the name of the particular star to come to the public domain. I believe it was his wife, actually, who was the one who put it into the public domain.
She's a producer. Well, I mean, the fact is, it was the worst kept secret in the world that everybody in the media knew it was Huw Edwards, but we weren't allowed to say. And then, as you say, his wife basically came out of the woodwork and said, leave him alone. He's got mental health problems. And basically the story kind of disappeared. And, you know, we hope Hugh's getting better, feeling better, but he's still off sick on full enormous amounts of pay. Some sort of situation is going to have to be reached there. I can't see why he should stay on the publicly funded payroll forever. But this is about the mother who originally phoned the BBC to say, very upset that my son, has been sending pictures to Huw Edwards. Huw Edwards appears to have been giving him money. This was the nature of her complaint. And she said, I think with some justification, the BBC just basically ignored her and said nothing to see here. And the rest of the story we know, James, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the technical term for this is a hot mess, as the kids call it these days, right? And the problem with this story is it touches on so many difficult areas of recent years. There's, the fact that this was a sort of same-sex interaction as well, and people trying to hide those kinds of things. The general kind of Pestminster is not limited to Westminster. It's limited seemingly nowhere now. It goes into the media as well. It's all kinds of different issues. And I think one of the reasons that it really gets is that Huw Edwards was such a respected figure, and that it was his commentary over so many of the major events of the recent history for the UK.
Death of the Queen.
Death of the Queen, and we go back and watch any of that archival footage, and some of that will there's a dangerous person. It's going to be tainted. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's going to be tainted by some of this. And it also just gets a little bit to people at home. They kind of know that things aren't always as they seem. But the fact that this was all covered up for so long, it just kind of adds to that whiff that things aren't right and that people will try and protect their own. And in the BBC, I think that's where they've really gone wrong.
Yeah, that's what it is, Alex. I mean, you worked at the BBC. The BBC reveres anyone who sits in front of a microphone. They're not called human beings. They're called the talent. It's not particularly talented to talk into a microphone.
I think, without sort of cheapening the argument, I think that something happens as well. If it was a male presenter of a certain age and this had been giving money to a young female, I think the response might have been very different. I think that there is a sort of degree of latitude that is provided when it's a man who seemingly has potentially not been living his life in the open, and that there is a degree of sort of... what's the word? Flexibility that's then afforded in the way these matters are treated.
And for a long time, we weren't allowed to mention the gender of the teenager involved, but we seem to be mentioning him now. It was a bloke. So but the BBC is accepting that it needs to review its processes when it comes to these kind of complaints, and that is why they are issuing a full apology to the family of the teenager whose mother originally complained. So it's quite a climb down by the BBC, but they did screw this up. If somebody comes to you and says, my little boy, is getting pictures or is sending pictures to one of your stars, you might view that as fanciful nonsense. You might say, this is a big star, but you must be proactive then. To just sort of try to say, nothing, sweep it under the carpet. Massive mistake. Always a mistake.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it gets at a couple of structural problems. The BBC has a cultural issue, exactly as you described, revering people and saying they could do no wrong and trying to cover up, which may have worked decades ago. Doesn't work anymore now when it's so easy for the mother, in this case, to go to a newspaper or to go onto social media and all those kinds of things. And then, of course, there's the fact that the BBC is just enormous. You go into their headquarters, there are so many people there, so many Byzantine layers of bureaucracy before you ever get anywhere near a screen or a radio or anything like that. And stripping away a lot of that, I think, will probably increase some of the accountability, and maybe this problem wouldn't have happened in the first place.
It's one of those stories as well that got its own legs on social media because there was a deafening silence coming out of the corporation. I should hasten to add, actually, that's nowhere in anything that's been said formally has the gender of the teenager involved been identified. That is merely talking about social media speculation. Well, I don't know why not. And
Exactly.
I don't know whether there are legal
Exactly.
reasons
Why can't we
also
tell these stories?
for that being the case.
Tell
But
the truth
social
to people.
media was very vociferous when it came to what may or may not have been going on. But again, you know, we have a man who is being paid by the taxpayer on full pay. We're told he's off sick. We know he's doing something, but we don't really know exactly what, thanks to the chatterati on Twitter. We have some idea. And like you were saying, Kevin, there was plenty of speculation within the walls of the corporation before all of this burst into the fore.
Yeah, this was not this. This was Huw Edwards, allegedly stalking younger members of the BBC staff. In other words, allegedly abusing his position as a powerful person by kind of intimidating people at the beginning of their careers who didn't want to say no to the powerful top newsreader of the entire corporation.
Oh, the super injunctions rattling around inside the BBC.
But when that name was revealed or emerged, it was no surprise to the staff of the BBC.
And that's always the problem with these things, as you say, these sort of worst kept secrets. And again, that may have been fine for dealing with these sorts of issues decades ago. Not morally fine, of course, but just in terms of trying to keep a lid on these things. But in the age of social media, where these whispers can get out and anonymous blog posts and things like that, I think that it just shows that you live by the sword and die by the sword, right? All the scandals and things that come around Westminster, politicians rightly held to account for it. It was good here to see that it was a different bit of the fourth estate of the media calling these guys out.
And don't forget, you know, the BBC, I mean, hopefully it will mend its ways, but it has a long track record of any scandal. It tries to sweep under the carpet. It tries to keep secret. I'll give you Martin Bashir, you know, for the Jimmy Savile and so on and so forth.
You have to have an inquiry into the inquiry.
Hopefully this will be the straw that breaks the camel's back, and the BBC will finally realise that when a scandal is brewing, don't try and keep it a secret. We're the people who pay for you, 170 quid a year. Why are you keeping secrets from us? That is not right.